The saying of entrepreneurs are really built different is it's crazy, because you have to be a crazy person to believe you can do something that's basically almost impossible.
We're putting a V8 in a
BMW
3 Series.
Basically, yeah.
If you're involved in the pipe and tube industry, you won't want to miss the Pipe and Tube Conference this November in Omaha, Nebraska. This event is an excellent opportunity to connect with industry experts, stay up to date with the latest technologies, and explore new business opportunities. You'll leave the conference with a wealth of knowledge and new connections to help your business succeed. So mark your calendar for November 13th and 14th and join us in Omaha for the Pipe and Tube Conference. Register today at fmamfg.org.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis with the Fabricator. My co-host is
Lincoln Bruner with the TPJ.
And also the Fabricator
And
sometimes.
also the Fabricators.
I need a peace sign this time.
We also are joined by, since he spoke up, Gareth Slager.
Hello.
And Griffin Hammond. I almost called you Mitch Hedman for some reason.
What was the name that you called Lincoln that one time?
Rich
Herbert? This is Rich something.
Rich somebody.
Barnett.
Rich Barnett.
Rich Barnett, for whatever
I should
reason.
just have a t-shirt that says that.
Yeah.
Hello, Rich.
I am not Rich Barnett.
Yeah. Today's guest is not Rich Barnett. It is Jay Lockett, fabricator out of Kansas City, Missouri, right?
Yes.
And he is the owner of Fabwerks. J Fabwerks.
Yeah, with an E.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
There's no E and J, but yes, in the works part.
Yes.
We had a really fun conversation with him talking about how he learned his welding skills, some of his metal art.
Thoughts on mental health?
What do you call his grandmother's bunk cake recipe?
It was
it
an
was
orange juice cake.
Orange
I'm
juice
hoping
cake.
we don't edit that out now.
No. No, we're keeping the orange juice cake
Okay.
part in.
Oh my goodness.
And actually, man, we covered a whole lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of fun talking with him about I really kind of enjoy people who don't go through the traditional channels of learning their skill, and this is a very non-linear path he took.
Yeah.
Non-linear, and I mean, you talk about a self-made person. I mean, he's sort of like the walking definition of self-taught with his welding. You know, a self-taught entrepreneur, businessman, kind of is teaching himself how to be a boss now.
Yeah, and very I mean, at least at this age, I think he mentioned he was 32.
Yeah.
It's kind of self-aware of working on shortcomings and trying to continually sharpen his not only skills but welding acumen.
Yeah, and the other interesting
Or business acumen.
Yeah, which he's got a lot of. I mean, and I thought the other interesting thing about Jay was that he didn't start out thinking he was going to be a businessman. He didn't think he's going to be an entrepreneur. He was just thinking, I'll try this. I'll try this welding thing as a hobby, and suddenly he found out what he's good at, and decided, you know what, maybe I'll do this a little bit more, and he apparently had a fantastic, acumen for welding, because all of a sudden he's proficient in several different methods, and he's being hired by multiple different companies. That's the part that amazes me, that someone can just pick something up like that and all of a sudden be in demand as a contractor.
Yeah. And he was this close to having a career as a chef.
Yeah.
I imagine the hours are a little bit better in this field, particularly running your own business.
Yeah, I mean, not as many people screaming at you for
And now he's like the self-proclaimed titanium guy of Kansas City.
titanium. And he laughed at me when I mentioned over lunch that he should get a tattoo, but you mark my words.
You're like a street gang, man.
The Titanium Boys.
Oh, wow. Come here for the absolutely worst in pop culture. Yeah, so I think you'll enjoy this chat with Jay Fabwerks. Stick around for the entire story about him dropping the engine from a 700 series Beamer into a 300 series. That's fun. So, yeah, enjoy.
It's that time of year again. Time for all students pursuing a manufacturing-related degree in a 2- or 4-year program to apply for a scholarship from FMA's foundation, Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs. Eligible students can receive up to $2,000 per semester for their program. Applications for spring 2025 are being accepted now until September 30th. Get all the details and apply on our website today. And now, back to our episode.
Hello, welcome back to the Fabricator Podcast. Speaking today with Jay of Jay Fabwerks outside the Kansas City metropolitan statistical area.
Go Chiefs.
Is it actually in KC?
Yeah.
Okay.
Downtown Kansas City.
Are you a long time? Are you a native of Kansas City?
I am, actually. I moved around a lot with my mom as a kid, and we settled in Kansas City. I was born in Kansas City, raised in Bronx, New York.
Wow.
And settled in Kansas City, went to high school, started high school in Atlanta, settled in Kansas City, continued high school, finished high school, barely. And my mom moved away to Charlotte when I was 18, and I never left.
No kidding. Wow. So that's home.
Yeah, that is
So
home.
when you say go Chiefs, you really mean it.
That's right.
So you're probably rooting for the Chiefs before they.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm definitely a bandwagon Chiefs fan. Before we had little Mahomes, it was like, but then we got this little 20-year-old, and here we are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Texas Tech is good.
It's always good to jump on the bandwagon when they're still winning.
Yeah, exactly.
Some other franchises.
As the Cubs fans have found out.
Yeah, there you go. It can be hard. So we wrote, I didn't write the story. Amanda Carlson back in the day wrote a story, 3 years ago back in the day?
Yeah.
Anyway, 2021 in The Welder did a profile on Jay and Jay Fabwerks. And you were up in the Chicago area on business, and we figured lucky enough to have you in, so thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about Jay Fabwerks.
So what I do is what I tell people is essentially I professionally glue things together. And so
in a very firm way.
Yes. And I try to keep my skill set very versatile because in my book, to be a great welder, you have to be very, very versatile versus being in like one skill set that is your comfortable skill set. And I was saying you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so with that, we do a lot of stainless steel, a lot of aluminum, a lot of titanium, carbon steel, brass, and copper, and stuff like that. And it's a very, very wide spectrum of I'll fix your grandma's chair and her pot, or I will go install a support in a bridge, or an elevator, or erect steel structures for a building, and weld that all to code, and have someone bring me their race car and they need a aluminum pipe made or a turbo kit, or I'll have a hospital bring me some medical devices that need to be TIG welded with 316 stainless or whatever have you, or somebody at Boeing will be like, hey, our welder's sick, we need you to weld this fuel door, and we'll have the FAA look it over and stuff like that, or repair this Cessna's structure to hold the engine. It has to be welded this way to this book by the FAA, and
that's a wide variety of regulations.
Yeah, very wide, very, very wide. I do beer stuff, and that falls in the food area, and I do art. I make art too when I want to or when I have time.
Yeah, and that's what we featured in that story back in 2021. Is the flower or is it a rose?
Giant rose, yeah.
Yeah, is that still up in Leaf Summit?
So no, it is not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I had to take it down because they were building a farmer's market, and so with that, they're like, "Hey, this is cool, but we got to do this," and I'm like, "All right, cool." And so I picked it up and put it behind my shop, and it's just flourishing in rust as you speak.
That's pretty cool. How long was it out there by the river?
Oh man, I would say like 5 years.
No kidding.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years. I have pictures of it when I first put it out there, and then like pictures of like when me and my daughters are there, and like we take pictures by it, and like people would send me in the middle of the day, hey, I walk past your rose. You know,
That's pretty cool.
So yeah.
Have you had any interest of anyone asking for it to be displayed somewhere?
I've had a few people that wanted to buy it, but they're kind of ankle biters and stuff like that, and I never get my hopes up anymore. So it's just, now it's more so, it's not a loss, it's more so of a thing of like, I wanted to make a bigger splash with my art, and I figured this out, and I made it in 3 months, and here's proof. I could care less about the money now.
Jay, you mentioned something in the article to Amanda, that you're speaking of being comfortable, being uncomfortable. When you got into welding, you jumped right into TIG welding.
Yeah, head first.
Which, of course, is known as a very finicky, very difficult process for a lot of people to learn. Tell me why you decided to do that, and what you learned from doing the hard stuff first.
So to start with it, I'm big into cars. I like cars. And at the time I was 19, 20, maybe 21. And I had a little BMW 3 Series 325i E30. And at the time, nobody had swapped in a V8 out of a 7 Series into the 3 Series. And so, yeah, tiny car.
I wonder why.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot of motor.
Yeah, a lot. And so nobody had done that. And so I was like, oh, this would be cool. And so I needed to make an exhaust system for it because nobody made one for the swap. Went to a local supplier, bought all the stainless tubing and stuff like that. And I had a buddy that had a old 1970s, 50s Miller Maxstar 140 scratch start TIG. And it was this little blue buzz box. And I was like, hey, does that work? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, okay. And so took it down to the welding supply store. They plugged it up, ran argon through it. And they were like, yeah, here, run a bead. And I ran a bead, and they're like, okay, you're all right. And so took it back to his house, bought a little bottle, bought, all your little beginner TIG things, and started practicing. And what's funny is I look back on those welds whenever I'm feeling down on myself, and they look like complete utter garbage. But it did hold. But yeah, the oxidation was real in those welds.
Yeah.
And so put that together. And then with that, I was like, okay, I kind of like this. This is kind of cool. I'm creating something with my hands. I'm useful. And then with that, I kind of got some jobs that taught me the industry standard, taught me how to TIG better. Had some really, really mean teachers along the way. I thank them now. And then with that, learned how to TIG, learned how to MIG, and then learned how to stick, and then got certified. And then people started bringing me things. Hey, fix this, make this, do this. And then fast forward, and here we are.
So with your interesting cars, did you take advantage of maybe like trades curriculum in high school, or was it available?
No. So I am predominantly self-taught. Never went to school. Never learned any terms unless it was just spoken to me. And I would say I maybe looked at a welding book a handful of times throughout my welding life, but nothing taught in school. The school I went to, we did not have a trade school, and actually in the district there was one school that did have the trade school. Okay. And you could have signed up for those classes, but I didn't. Yeah.
Did you have a feel at that age that you might end up on the path you're on?
No.
What were you thinking of back then?
I think about that, and I think I might have been playing basketball. I don't know. Glad I didn't. Yeah. Glad I did not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you obviously you're at a position of running your own business, doing art, having your art seen by people, having customers come from all over. How do you characterize where your business is now versus maybe where it was?
I would say.
And what has been helpful in getting that off the ground?
As far as getting to this point now?
Yeah.
I would say there's a lot of grit and the saying of entrepreneurs are really built different is it's crazy because you have to be a crazy person to believe you can do something that's basically almost impossible.
We're putting a V8 in a
BMW
3 Series.
Basically, yeah. And so doing that is tough, but from where the business was, I think it started off as like a hobby, and then money became the focus. And so it's just trying to figure out how to monetize on a skill set that at that time I didn't know. Commercial welding, I didn't know like you could travel. I didn't know you can do pipe. I didn't know you could do structural. I didn't know you could do aerospace. I didn't know you could do food grade. I didn't know that stuff. It was just, okay, I'm in the cars and I see people building turbo kits and headers. That looks cool. I can probably do that. And then from there, it spiraled into, all right, I'm doing turbos and headers and car stuff. And then I have people bringing me like, hey, can you build this for this job I'm doing? Or can you fix this handrail? Or can you make a little handrail? Or can you make an ADA compliant handrail? Or, you know, hey, can you weld this beam together? It needs to be able to hold X amount of weight. And you have to do it with this thing called an electrode and a stick. And, you know, do it that way. And then from there, it was like, okay, I can get away from the cars because after a while, you know, you're fighting with your buddies. I'm like, well, I don't want to pay that, or I don't want to do this, or John down the street can kind of do it, and getting away from that. And then you get into the commercial world where it's like, do you have the paperwork that says you can do this, you know, insurance and all that stuff? And this is basically like, this is going to save people's lives. Like you have to weld this so people don't die. Right. So,
well, I mean, it's kind of the undercurrent for a lot of the stuff we do throughout the day.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I think with that helped change the business model a little bit. And then along the way, it's just figuring out how to make money, figuring out how to run a business, figuring out how to be a boss, figuring out how to be competitive, but not just shoot yourself in the foot. Or undersell yourself, and then also just learning tips and tricks along the way with what you're doing and how things should function and the process of how things should go.
Yeah. How long has Jay Fabwerks been around now?
10 years.
Wow.
10 years.
And you said boss, so you have people working with you?
I do. I've been by myself for 9 years. Last year was the best year I've ever had, and it was also the first year I've ever had employees.
Oh, wow.
And so that was definitely a learning curve. Definitely learned higher pay doesn't equate to a better worker.
Yeah.
Being lenient with people doesn't equate to a better worker.
Yeah.
And also just trying to be flexible while balancing everything else on the back end that your employees don't see that stuff. Yeah. And so I try to tell my employees is that I want you to come to work and I want you to be here. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here. You can leave. It's okay. But come back when you're ready to, when you want to be here. And I want this to be an environment where it doesn't feel like work. Yeah. It feels like we're kind of hanging out, but you do have a job to do.
Right. Is that, do you find younger people have that kind of willingness to be a part of something where the I don't want to call it fun, but you know what I mean, that the meat of the day is working with your hands and kind of figuring things out? Is that in their DNA, you think?
I want to say this younger generation, because I've had someone that worked for me that was 17, and I think some do have that will to work, but I think majority are caught in today's media of fast results, quick things. You see it, 30-second time spans, attention spans, and stuff like that. I have kids and I have daughters, and my oldest is 7. And if it isn't moving on a glowing screen, or if it isn't funny, or if it isn't something, then she's gone. You don't have her. You don't have her attention. And so I would say with younger kids in the work environment, it's definitely tough, but you can explain to them, hey, this is how this works. This is what I want you to do. I want you to do it. Try it.
Yeah.
And that kind of captivates their attention. And then like once they get the hang of it and they're like, okay, I can do this and I can do that. But then after like a week, they're like, okay, what do we do next?
Yeah.
And so.
Jay, you were mentioning before about how the leap from being a solo practitioner to being a boss can be a little rough just because there's different capabilities now on the team. It's not just you and you know yourself and you know what you can do. Now you've got to deal with other people's gifts or lack thereof, right?
Yeah.
And to maybe tell us a little bit about how you've navigated that as a new boss, somebody who's now running a small business, multiple people and stuff.
Working with people it's very fun. I'm a very patient person. You have to be patient when you're the one handling everything and balancing everything. I've learned that you can't be hard on people to expect them to do what you can do with your eyes closed, and they can't. And it's definitely something I've had to learn and like reel back in, because I can TIG weld aluminum over my head on my back. Having someone else do that, and they've never TIG weld aluminum, and then I look over them and they got holes in their shirt with globs of aluminum on them. It's like, okay, you can't do that again. And so it's finding each person's strong suit and putting them there, and then slowly working into something new for them.
When you find yourself in that teaching moment, should we say, are you finding receptivity among people, or are you finding people like, I can't do that, so I just give up?
No, I definitely try my best to put people in the mindset of, you don't quit, don't ever quit, because you can always try.
Yeah.
You can try, and if you don't want to try all the time, try for 5 minutes. Try for 5 minutes, and if you want to quit, then we can move on to something else. But we'll circle back to it.
Yeah. I looked on your website and saw that one of the little bits you put in about yourself was that when you were a little kid, your grandmother taught you how to cook from scratch.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that, you think, that maybe taught you your work ethic and your love of like making new things?
Well, I love food. So there's that. I think learning from my grandmother, she's passed away now. I love her to death. She definitely taught me to, once you have a process down, try to refine it and make it better. And with that, keep everything clean, keep everything organized. And as you're refining that process, your end product will get better.
Yeah.
And
cool.
So that's nice.
What was her specialty?
She made really good sweet potato pie. She made really good peach cobbler. And I recently had a family member give me her orange juice cake recipe.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. You will die from it, but it is amazing.
Is it like a white cake?
It's yellow, so it's a yellow.
Oh.
It's a yellow bundt cake that you bake. It's amazing. You will definitely go get diabetes eating it. Because when I made it, last time I made it for some people. And they're like, this is so good, but I can only have 2 slices because my teeth hurt. And I was like, yeah, it's
Disintegrating.
Yeah, it's
That's good. That's good Southern cooking right there.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a good product.
If I wasn't welding, I'd be cooking.
Really?
I went to, when I graduated high school, I went to a community college and did automotive and culinary. Cars are going to be around and people got to eat. And so
Why does my cake taste like motor oil?
right. I have a 7-year-old, 2-year-old, both of them are girls, and I just had a 7-month-old boy.
Oh, wow.
And I love to cook for them.
That's great.
And the thing I like to do for them is do simple meals, but like make them over the top. And so both my daughters are steak eaters. That's my fault. I took her. We have a really nice restaurant back home in Kansas City called Anton's. And I took her to lunch one day there, and we're sitting at the bar, and I order a Kansas City strip steak and French fries. And I look over, I'm like, what do you want? And she's like, I want a 18-ounce ribeye and macaroni. And I'm like, all right, sure. And so ever since then, she's like, when she goes out with me, her mom, grandparents, she's like, I want a ribeye steak, medium. heavy on the medium, and I'm like, okay.
Does she always get the side of macaroni too?
Yes.
I respect
or French
that.
fries. Or
Yeah.
French fries. But I made her that for dinner one day.
Oh wow, that looks nice.
And so it's super simple: macaroni,
Yeah.
steak with some green in it.
Right.
Very looks very
You're gonna have to
tasty.
send us that picture. Yeah. Oh, over the macaroni.
Yeah.
Presentation.
That's right. So,
Yeah, well, you gotta make it look good, right? Because
Thank you.
then it's
That was the whole appeal.
then
That's
it's
why
not
I wanted to do it.
It's not
What?
appreciated if you
Yeah.
don't make it look
Does
good.
she appreciate the presentation?
Yeah, she.
Okay.
I asked her after she scarfed it down, and she's like, "This is so good. This is so good." So,
This
yeah.
child's 7.
Yeah. But you're like,
Yeah.
did you see how I plated that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I told her, I was like, "How does it look?" She's like, "It looks so colorful," and I was like, "Oh, you are my child."
You know, I'm only paying for presentation. Dad.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Can I get this to go, please?
Yes.
Well, I think, I mean, when it comes to fabrication, I think results in eye quality matters as much as almost actual quality for some, particularly if you're dealing with like not beyond carbon steel, like stainless steel.
Oh, yeah.
What's your mix of business right now in terms of material?
So predominantly right now, I would say we do a lot of carbon steel for like handrails and structural stuff. So you get in your I-beams and a lot of 836 grade stuff. We do sometimes run into clients that want to do custom things, and so we run into like brass and copper, and some vibrant things, but the goal is to get more, as I've been doing the welding and fab for a decade now. Now I'm starting to want to get into the machining side of things. Get a mill, CNC mill, because I can do CAD and stuff like that. That was very fun to learn by myself. But get into doing milling and machining to where I can make like really fancy door tags, really fancy stuff like restaurants. I really want to do titanium home decor because that's not something I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
And so, like, picture instead of a white kitchen island countertop, imagine a titanium countertop slab of thin titanium that's been patinaed purple, blue, and clear coated. Like, that'd be really cool. And then like you have kitchen pulls to match that are purple, blue, and I'm probably giving my idea away right now, but it'd be really cool.
Now you're creating demand out there,
Yeah.
and someone's
Yeah.
going to listen to it. When you think about your art and what it takes to do something that presents well, that plates well, I mean, how does that affect your just general fabrication, I guess, ethic, for lack of a better word? Like, how does that affect how you try to do your just run-of-the-mill fabrication?
It's definitely process oriented because I imagine the end product, but then I got to figure out how to get there. And so I have to figure out how to get there, what material to use, how to finish the material, how it needs to be cut, how it needs to be welded, how it needs to be fitted up. And usually if it's something random like that, it's, maybe there's probably a second try into it, but usually the second try I can nail it and it'd be all right.
Do you have a good feel now in terms of the different things that have come across your plate? Like, it's going to take this long to get through the shop.
Yeah, usually I do most of the hands-on, so like I know how long it's going to take from, me getting the material, getting it unloaded, getting it cut, getting it prepped and welded. Typically anything that really comes to the door is I would say a month maximum.
Okay.
Yeah, a month maximum. Like we have a handrail job we're starting now where they want to do a modern handrail style in a residential home, and they want to do a grab rail that is flat bar, but they want the spindles to be round that just go directly into the floor, not onto like a metal, just directly into the floor.
Oh, wow.
And so, but the kicker is they don't want to use powder coat, and so they want it stained. And so staining metal is something a little bit new, because typically I just go straight to powder coat. But when you're staining metal, you have to get rid of the mill scale on all of it.
Right.
And then get
Is that
the
like
stain.
a hand tool job?
Yeah. So yeah, I would say you can get away with a grinder and like a 80 grit flap disc, but you just kind of have to be careful not to dig into it, because as you start to dig into it, you get marks, and then once you get the mill scale off, then you got to go back and sand over it, and once you get that off, then you got to wipe it down and clean it, and then you can stain it, and then you got to water down the stain because it's an acid, and then you have to clear coat it or wax it or acrylic coat it or whatever, and like Jesus, that's like that's like a week.
That's time intensive.
So you're talking about staining. Does it actually can you get stain from metal that'll do like a color representation like on wood? Wow.
Whereas wood, it's, I don't know, is it an oil? Is it an ink? I don't know.
It's an oil.
Yeah, it's an oil. Whereas metal, it's an acid.
Okay. Wow.
And so you just apply it and it'll come in blacks, browns.
No kidding.
Patinas and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, just an acid, and then you have to deactivate the acid with water.
Yeah.
So you've got to have. How has that been, like, applying that in the field? Has it been like a real learning curve for you?
Yeah, recently it's been a learning curve. I've actually, because I have no problem asking other people and like, hey, I've seen you do this. How'd you do it? How did oh yeah, it was hard, took forever. Definitely charge for that because it takes a minute.
Takes a minute.
I'm like, okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah. Is the local kind of fabricating community kind of open like that?
Yeah.
Friendly competitors?
Yeah, there are. I think I do a pretty good job of not overstepping my boundaries with the other competitors in the area, because there's enough work that goes around that we don't step on each other. As far as like, some do extremely high niche stuff, crazy stuff. And then, you have others that do just strictly commercial and strictly structural. Or you have, like myself, that does very broad range of things. And so I'm not afraid to ask and be like, hey, I saw you did this on your Instagram. Like, how'd you do it and who'd you go to?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Ask for Frank. And I'm like, okay, thanks.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is your business set up the way you like it in terms of things you like to work on? Or is the variety the thing that kind of motivates you?
The variety is what a lot of people tell me they like.
Yeah.
They like, and I do like the variety also, because you're not doing production style welding. You're not welding 1,500
So you want to
parts.
avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, I do.
Right?
I do want to avoid it, and I do have clients that do give me those jobs, but like they're in small quantities of like 25 to 30.
Gotcha.
And like there's another client that actually gives me like these little aluminum boxes that look like Kleenexes, and he's like, I need 300, and I'm like, okay.
It's bigger than you'd like.
Yeah. Okay. And so do some production style, but predominantly custom or group style jobs, like installing really massive handrails and renting equipment to do erections and stuff like that.
So how often are you out in the field?
So I would say percentage wise of business out in the field or work in the field, I would say 60 to 50%.
Wow.
And then the rest is shop. And, sometimes it varies on the weeks, and sometimes it's 80% in the field and barely in the shop.
Do you like that mix?
I do like working outside.
When the weather's nice?
Yeah, that. Because back home in Kansas City, it's been 100 degrees this week. And we cut out at 3 o'clock, and I'm not answering my phone after 3 because it's too hot.
Yeah.
It's way too hot. And back in the early days of JFab, I remember those days of me working on a handrail, no shade, barely drink water that day, and get done with the job and just want to collapse. And I'm like, I'm never doing that again. Yeah. And so, no.
All the important lessons of taking care of yourself, you don't learn until you're like post 35.
True.
I should have been drinking water all this time.
This is true. Yeah.
Jeez.
I wonder if you pay for that on the back end. Like, if you've just been a little bit more in tune of health early on.
Why is my doctor after me? I've got
This is very true. At 32 now, I just started running. I joined a run club, a couple run clubs to just get active. I don't drink a lot of soda. Actually, I don't drink soda at all. Predominantly water. I've been doing a lot of eating salads, putting fruit in my salads, because being African American, there are just pre-existing things in my family that I am easily prone to. And so to avoid that and kind of break the cycle in my family, I love orange juice cake.
Yes.
But
Can't hydrate with orange juice cake.
yeah, we're not doing that every month.
One slice.
Yeah.
So I have written about it once. So it's not a lot, but dietary health of people that work in the trades is like, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Because
It's been a problem.
Yeah, I mean, if
Yeah.
if you're relying on like snacks in the vending machine to get you through the shift, or gas
Oh,
stations,
truck stops on the road. and
yeah,
stuff,
or the man, if you're lucky enough to have a lunch made and you're bologna for 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad made 82, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's probably the key to his health.
He was ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's a thing that to the point where we've written about. In fact, I'm writing about a shop that builds water tanks up in South Dakota, where they built a new facility and they have like a vending machine with like salads, things like healthy stuff for their employees.
Like those farmer fresh ones you see in O'Hare.
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely a lifestyle change, but it's much easier if you're committed to it or you're in a surrounding that's kind of a little bit easier to make those choices.
Yeah, it's harder to eat healthy because it's expensive. But this day and age, it's the same as going out. And in the trades, I would say eating healthy and living off of Red Bulls and Monsters and stuff like that, just 800 milligrams of caffeine every day, like that's not healthy for you. And
right.
And I even drink energy drinks, and me and the coworkers go back and forth. Oh, you have another energy drink? You said you weren't going to do that. And so I was like, well, we got a lot to do today. And so
just one more, I promise.
Try my grandmother's Red Bull butt cake.
Right.
This will get you going for about a week.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's got rings, baby.
Yeah. And so it's just trying to lay off of those things and have accessible, healthier options definitely helps. Because when you eat better, you feel good. And when you feel good, you perform better.
Right.
And so it's a big thing,
Well, you got stamina. You can't underplay that, because as a business owner now, boss of other people, and making sure that you're kind of setting the standard.
Yeah.
For other people. It can be a bit of a change, but I know as I've gotten older, you've got a lot of other people depending on you.
A lot.
You got 3 kids. It makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely, as a single dad of 3, and running the company and keeping the mental health in check, and keeping the workload coming in and keeping it moving, and just life. It's definitely tough. Taking care of your physical health and your mental health, for sure, because I know that's another thing that's not a big thing in the trade world, because it's whatever, stop your crying, get better. Whereas sometimes you do need a swift kick in the butt, but your mental can ruin you, can affect your work, can slow you down. And, whether it's something personal, something not at home, something going on that's affecting someone else but affecting you, that's a big thing. And, I'm a big advocate for taking care of your mental health, because that's that's a big thing.
It's almost like, to make a manufacturing comparison, getting to the root cause. Because as you made it sound, it could affect things quality-wise, relationship-wise, if you don't address it. So in a way, it makes total sense.
Yeah, it could be a big thing to where you can have someone working that has been exposed to, well, my dad didn't care, so why should I care? And then they carry that on through childhood, and it turns into this traumatic childhood thing. And then they become this adult, and it's like, well, I've done this my whole life. It's fine. It's worked for me. And it's like, well, that's because you you were exposed to something you thought was your norm.
Right.
And that wasn't the norm. And that was your norm because the person that showed you didn't put that in check.
Yeah.
Well, when we, as people, have a tremendous capacity for normalizing not good things.
Yeah.
My wife's in the mental health field, and you've got all kinds of stigmas around it too, where you're just kind of dissuaded from pursuing mental health because, well, we don't do that, grown-ups don't do that or whatever. That's not true. You've got, she sees all kinds of people that have put it off way too long.
Yeah.
So good for you for recognizing that in yourself and making the effort to do that.
Thanks.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, when you started your business and started hiring people on, was that something you kind of tried to recognize up front about the folks that you hired?
Yeah, I would definitely thank my therapist, Lovey Kimberly. You're awesome. I would say she's definitely helped me recognize things in myself, but also helped me kind of recognize those red flags in people. Yeah. And so definitely helps to bring new people on and see what characteristics they bring, but also see if it's problematic with working in a group setting. Whether it be working with others or not wanting to listen to others because they feel like they're right all the time, or just other things that they have in their life that they're bringing into the business that will affect our end goal.
Yeah. Have you had prior experiences working with others that makes you feel like you're in a better position working for yourself?
I've worked with others. I work well with others. I can be a little stubborn sometimes and hard-headed, but with some communication and understanding what needs to be done, I think the end result is the same with a team.
Yeah. So not that big a difference. Did you ever imagine yourself running your own business?
No.
It seems like it just kind of happened in a way, right?
It definitely. I want to say it's one of those things where you equate it to a little mom and pop that makes a really good some food dish.
Right.
Mom and pop are just making it. They're making it how they want to make it, and it's really, really good. And they do it really, really good, and they do that one thing really good. And then 5 years later, they have a chain of doing that one thing really good. And so I would say it's about the same, that I learned to weld and learn from people in the military, learn from traveling welding, learn from working for a defense contractor and the standards, and seeing what types of welding is all out there, and what's for me, and I want to stay on land, I don't want to go underwater, and stuff like that. And so you just get exposed to a lot of things, and with exposure you gain perspective. Right. And with perspective, you can kind of choose, and here we are.
Yeah.
Jay, I wanted to go back to what you're saying about versatility and then the preponderance of field work that you have. So I know you were mentioning before we went on the air that you really prize someone who's able to problem solve in the field, because for you that's really been where it's at, right? Like the ability to, you can know a process, but until you're out in the field and you got dust blowing into your weld pool, into your weld puddle, you really don't know how to solve problems. Maybe talk a little bit about what it takes to be an entrepreneur working in the field and contending with issues as they come up to finish a job.
Yeah, I would say being an entrepreneur, step one, you have to be able to fix problems right then and there, or make the conscious good decision to double down, or all right, let's stop, let's do this, let's go get some money or whatever. And then with being a welder, fabricator, and doing that stuff in the field, you have to understand that things are just not going to go right. And so you got to either figure it out, you got to cut a weld out, cut a piece out, build up build up a weld because the gap is bigger than what it needs to be, or do some Texas TIG, break off some slag off an electrode and use that for a rod, and do stuff like that, and maybe change your process because the one you wanted to use isn't working, and be able to do that right then and there and deliver the same end result.
Why do you think it's so valuable for people in the welding field to be able to problem solve on the spot?
Mainly if you're alone somewhere and you got your rig and your machines running and stuff like that, and you run into a problem to where you don't have an extra set of hands. You got to figure it out. You got to make the best possible choice to make this work, and make sure it's safe, and make sure it's efficient, and make sure it'll pass code or whatever have you. Having that versatility and being able to stand in front of a problem, look at it, and think it through before you act, that's a very valuable thing. Because even me younger, I run headfirst into a problem, fix it somehow, and then it's that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work at all. This is gonna suck. I gotta fix it again, and so stuff like that.
Yeah. What kind of capabilities do you have at your shop now?
So as far as welding, at my shop, I think I have 9 welders, and TIG at the shop, MIG at the shop. I do offer CNC plasma. If I had a mill, I could do that in CAD. Do drilling, grinding.
All the tools necessary to do your custom type work.
Stuff like that. And then in the field, in my truck, TIG in the field, MIG in the field.
What kind of power source you got for the mobile welder?
So I have 2 mobile units. I have an old Miller Bobcat 225 NT, the old style ones, big, heavy duty, loud one. That's a DC AC machine. I don't use that as much, but that was the first machine I was using. Use it for everything.
Okay. Wow.
The machine that I use primarily is my new Bobcat 265, and it is makes welding like drawing with crayons.
Okay.
Wow.
It's so freaking easy. When I bought it, I had to recertify for my structural D1 cert, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the D11 certs.
No,
and so with
position related?
Yeah. So with structural welding, D11 is your baseline structural certification. Right. To get certified in structural, you can do your 1G position, which is just your flat. You can do your 2G position, which is your vertical or horizontal, essentially. And then you could do your 3G, which is a vertical up stick weld test. And then that is just for your structural. Do any one of those tests, you can get certified in that position. Mm-hmm. Pass a 1G, certified for 1G. Pass a 2, and so on. I think it's so stupid, but whatever. When you do a 4G structural test, does not certify you for 3, 2, or 1. Only certifies you for 4. 4 is over your head. Mm-hmm. Stick welding. And so I had to, I think I was doing a job or something. I don't know. And I did the job, did the welding, gave them my certification for this job. I think the job was welding a W/24 I-beam under a building to support the whole floor. It's a dog park, which was really interesting. And I had to weld a bunch of I-beams that basically spread out over the floor to brace it. The inspector came down and he was like, all right, looks really good. And I was like, thanks. And he's like, I just need your paperwork, whatever. And I was like, cool. Gave him my paperwork. Also, fun fact, you do not have to recertify as long as you have a booklet of everything you do that is certifiable work. Didn't have a booklet. And so they were like, hey, you don't have a booklet, so you need to recert. And then we need those to make sure, you're good. Cool, not a big deal. I weld every day. This is a walk in the park. Went to my supplier, or my local welding supply. They have a CWI there. Gave me my plates. I took them outside, set it up in my truck. Did a 3G vertical weld test in the parking lot. Took that in there to him. Came back outside, set up the 4G, welded that over my head. The new machine literally makes it so easy a caveman can do it. And it's so smooth. And I even compared it to like the old Bobcat to the new one. And I ran beads, and I was like, man, this is crazy. Miller knows what they're doing. This is expensive, but this is great.
Yeah.
How does it do? I mean, what capabilities does the new unit have that allows you to makes things so easy?
So the new unit, it's fuel injected, where the old one is carbureted.
Okay.
It's smaller. It's like the size of this table.
Okay.
And it's like 400 pounds versus the old one is probably the size of that table and 1,000 pounds.
Wow.
And it's louder. It's carbureted. The new unit, you can do TIG, MIG with gas, MIG with flux core, arc gouging, 60-10, 70-18, and yeah, that's it. And then it has pre-selects. So say you're welding with 70-18 on 11 gauge thickness material, and your electrode side is 332. You can literally like press the preset button, and that comes up as an option.
Wow.
And like and it has a digital display. There are no analogs.
Yeah.
And so it has like 4 buttons on it, and so that's really cool.
Good investment.
Agreed. Has paid itself off 5 times since I've had it.
Wow. When'd you get it?
6 months ago.
No kidding.
Yeah, 6
Merry
months
Christmas.
ago. Yeah. Listening, right? And so versus the old machine, I ran two welds with the new and the old, and like the new is just cleaner, it's smoother, whereas the old one it welds fine, and you kind of, if you know what you're doing, you can guess on the settings and stuff like that, and the range you need to be in, but it's just a little bit more rugged. Whereas the new machine's more smooth, it's more clean, it's quieter, and it just makes it easy.
Cool.
And so finished the 4G, took the test in, came back the next day. He cut them, he bent them. CW, I was like, this is the cleanest welds I've ever seen. I was like, you're just saying that.
Good customer service.
Right. And I have those coupons on my box in the shop, and when I have new people come in, I'm like, I explain the test and the process.
Yeah.
Because I typically tell new hires, like, hey, if you can get certified, this is the pay raise you will be in.
Yeah.
This is what passing tests look like.
Right. When they see the coupons, then you're like, oh, this is what I'm shooting for.
Right. This is what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
And so, new machines.
Nice.
Miller's expensive, but no.
That when you do a certification like that, does that make you think you need to start with a book? And keep
now I have a book.
Okay.
Now I have.
So it's like a lot of other things. You kind of learn it, and you kind of say like, this makes sense.
Yeah, and so it's just something to avoid in the future, so that I don't have to like recert. Granted, I don't care to recert. I can do it. It's fine. It just sharpens my skills, keeps me on my toes. I know I can do it. I'm never nervous. I remember when I first started trying to test. Okay, I got this.
Right.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And so doing it so much in the field now, and then like when I have my new hires come in and they're welding. And like I watch them in the field, and I'll never have them do something they can't do or something that's critical, but I'll watch them, and like you can just tell the newness is still with them, because they're like, "Why are you watching me?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I'm just seeing how you do it," and they're like, "Okay, all right."
They smell new.
Yeah, exactly.
Do they oftentimes, do they come to you with like a more formal welding education, or are they
my last 2 hires did come from welding schools, and we're going to brush on a point that we were talking about earlier. My last 2 hires came from a welding school. One was a male, one was a female. Female went to a welding school in the Midwest, southern Midwest, near Oklahoma or something like that. And the male hire went to a welding school that's local to the Kansas City area. He came to work for me, and first day, this is what we're doing, this is what we're cutting, we're grinding, we're doing this, blah, 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 blah. Great guy, great kid, love him to death. And at the end of the day, I was like, so how'd you like your first day? He's like, this is great. This is the most I've ever learned, ever. Wow. I was like, did they not teach you this? He's like, no. I was like, how much did you pay?
Yeah.
And the female welder, she went to a school, and I think a little bit longer than him, and she's a little bit more proficient and a little bit more well-versed, a little bit higher quality of welds, and has been doing it a little bit longer than him. Yeah. I have a bone to pick with schools. Welding schools and field welding and learning on the field, I feel like trumps some schools.
Right.
And also, I don't understand why some schools, actually, I take that back. I do know why they do this, but why they don't teach more outside of the traditional trades of pipe and structural. But most schools are teaching pipe because people want to chase pipe.
Yeah.
And pipeliners are God's gift to this green earth.
Right.
And so
green earth.
It's schools. I know why they do it, because of the money. Because I had this hire explain to me. I was like, explain to me how this worked, because I don't know the school side of it. And after he explained to me, and the math was mathing, and I'm like, okay, no wonder, because these schools are clearing $1 million a year. So yeah, welding in the field, I feel like trumps school welding, because you do learn the terminology. You do learn the hands-on. You do learn what can happen. In the field, you're definitely going to learn. You're going to watch what's going to happen. And you're going to learn a little bit more, because it's a lot different when you're in a booth with these nice fancy donated machines versus when you have your own machine, 100-degree day, it doesn't want to run, you're sweating, your stringer's slipping out of your hand, sweat's in your eyes, it's windy or it's raining, and you're on your back welding pipe or structural, it's dark, or you got a crazy contractor doing crazy things, or crazy GC or whatever while you're trying to weld, or another contractor's working near you and he's moving your workpiece, and that's a lot different than being in a booth, and you're dealing with people. And schools get you only so much ready for the real world, which I think that's just any school,
right?
But sometimes I just have a bone to pick with welding schools.
Yeah. So when you say out in the field, you mean literally out in the elements. Does that apply to all processes, or just mainly stick?
I would say predominant. No, yeah, I would say all processes.
Yeah. So I mean,
So
adapt and overcome if you're in those elements, right?
Yeah, because and stick and out. When you're stick welding, predominantly, you're out in the elements.
Yeah.
Rain, snow, whatever.
Yeah.
When you're MIGging, you can be out in the elements, but you have a little bit more
protection.
Yeah, a little bit more protection, but also a little bit more baggage, because you got a suitcase or a MIG powered by something.
Right.
TIG, not so much, because that's going to be in a shop.
Right.
And so what you'll kind of run into with TIGging is, you have your workmates or somebody complaining about dirty material, or the machine not working, or whatever. And so whereas in a school, you're in a booth,
Yeah.
kind of out of position, and you know you have your instructor helping you and stuff like that, and you got a machine that works. The power is there. Power's clean. Everything's good.
Yeah.
And so,
would you change the way you learned if you had a chance to go back, or do you think like you're the welder because of everything you've experienced?
I would say I am the welder I am today from everything I've exposed myself to. From learning on a scratch start TIG machine versus one with high frequency, or working in a factory where we did stainless steel 22 gauge or 24 gauge stainless work, and that's all thin stuff on stainless.
Right. So
you know, running a seam laser versus an actual TIG in your hand off of those old tombstone millers.
Yeah.
That's a lot different now, where you got these fancy high frequency machines, inverters now, set of transformers and stuff like that. My first teacher that taught me TIG very well, he was a military guy for the Navy. His name was Mike. Very mean, very sheltered guy. He ate chicken all his life, and I always asked him why. He's like, I would always go to Walmart and get the rotisserie chicken. That'd last me the week. I'm like, okay, all right, man. But Mike could weld really, really good. My first weld test with Mike, he gave me pieces of 22 gauge stainless, and he said, I need you to make a butt, a T, and a lap. I was like, okay, no problem. Put on my little Harbor Freight welding helmet with the flames on the side, and he's like, but you need to weld these together and do not oxidize them on the other side or sugar them on the other side, and you're going to be doing this at 300 amps. I was like, oh, okay. And I quickly learned that was it finger? It was finger controlled. So with finger, that's 300 immediately. There isn't a gradual like with the pedal.
Right.
Learn pretty quickly. You got to move really fast, really, really fast. With being so high, and passed the test, got the job, but I learned how to be better at it.
Yeah.
And now, now obviously you can give me a finger control, you can give me a foot pedal. I'm a big firm believer that if you have the knowledge and the skill set, you can produce the same results on any machine.
Yeah. Would you encourage other people who may one day want to own their own business to maybe learn on somebody else's dime? Or is that just how it worked out for you?
I think for me, it was in that time period. I had no idea for business. I had no thoughts of doing business. This was more so of like a hobby.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this, and I'm going to build turbo kits and headers and exhausts, and that's cool.
I'm going to put way too much motor in a car.
Yeah.
We're saving that for the last question.
I would say learning on someone else's dime, I wouldn't do that because that's just bad blood. And then also, as a business owner, and you're building something and someone's coming in, oh, I can do that. Okay. And they watch you and they learn how you do it.
Right.
And then they leave and they try to take your customers, or they leave and they start their own business. Now you have another competitor.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't advise learning on someone else's dime. Just do it in your own free time.
Yeah.
Do it in your own free time. Learn in your own free time. If you want to do that, you need to understand the hard rules of business. It's business, it's not personal. So when you get booted, it's not personal, it's business.
Yeah.
And so that's just, if you want to go that route, you just got to understand those things.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of companies that are trying to like train in-house with the idea that they're realizing that they're probably going to lose that person, or there's a chance that they can lose that person to a competitor or, a different field or whatever. But we hear that a lot, right, Dan?
Yeah. You're coming from it from a business owner, and I didn't really keep that in mind when I ask that question. Because for me, it's learning the skills while having a job with somebody else.
Yeah.
And maybe ultimately it leads to running your own thing, but not the quick hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not there for 6 months, because I don't think that's good for anybody.
Yeah, no.
It's particularly if you would definitely want to learn something, it's going to take more than 6 months.
Well,
because,
it
seems like from you just that one story, you and Mike kind of, I don't know if y'all would be on the same bowling team together, but there's definitely was an exchange of knowledge there that really was kind of beneficial.
Yeah.
And I imagine you picked up some other things along the way.
Yeah, I did. I definitely picked up a lot of things from him. We did butt heads a lot because
he was mean.
Yeah, yeah. The damn rotisserie chicken just got into him. No, he definitely was. He was an old military guy, and so he was. No, I'm right. This is what I did. This is how we did it back in the day.
Yeah.
This is what the results it was, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. And me being this kid to him, he's like, you don't know anything. But definitely picked up a lot of good traits, skill sets from him. Obviously, the delivery is a little bit rough, but I think learning those things did help me to become who I am today. But I do agree that there's nothing wrong with learning the trade. I think it might be harder to learn that trade on someone else's dimes. But this day and age, there's tons of co-working spaces, tons of trade co-working spaces where people offer classes to go do that. And you go do that in the nighttime. And I even do it sometimes. I think I charge people like $100 for a 2-hour session. First session, you learn all the terminology. You learn, all the bits and pieces of a TIG welder, what it works, the knobs, the amps, the backbridge settings, and all that stuff. And then the next day, we do some carbon steel, see how you like that. Position your arms, rest your wrists, stuff like that. And then the next day, we get to aluminum, see if you like it, learn about the layers of oxidation, and the puddle. Look for the puddle, feed it into the puddle. Don't have your filler rod outside because it just balls up and runs away from you, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing. I think it's going to be really hard to try to learn on someone else's dime when that someone else had built that business off of probably barely having food on the table.
Yeah.
And you're just going to come on in and be like, yeah, I want to do this and learn this. And okay. And so I think it might be tough.
Yeah.
But, I'm not against people not learning. I tell people to learn. If you don't want to do a business, join the union. You're going to go in there being a dummy. You're going to come out a journeyman, and you're going to know everything. And you're going to weld really well, and do that. It is whatever you want to do.
There's a lot of different paths.
Yeah, a lot of different paths.
Yeah. Where do you hope to see your business in 5 years?
Not so much hands-on. Being able to create. I think getting into my business in the thick of it, I think, all right, I'm 22 now. I want to be a millionaire by 30. Now I'm 30. I got 3 kids. I don't care about being a millionaire. I just want to have my kids running around on a green grass patch, and I'm on a rocking chair, and I can go into my shop and lay out some parts, build a titanium exhaust or two, and go enjoy it, and take my kids around, and that's it.
Yeah. Have time to make a mistake in mac and cheese.
There you go.
Anything you want to ask, Garrett?
Yeah, speaking of making things, I was looking at your website. I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
The crypto art.
Yeah.
You've got the coffee table and the fire pit or the grill.
Yeah.
What's the story behind those?
I was like, man, it'd be really cool if someone made metal crypto art. And so I actually, with my art, I do like to make furniture. And I made this table that actually is made has steel sides that were CNC plasmid out. And I had the Bitcoin white paper laser engraved on each panel of the table. The Bitcoin white paper basically is a document that was created by the creator of Bitcoin that outlines what Bitcoin is, the use case, how it basically is a deflationary currency that grows in values every 4 years, and the equations behind it and how it works with each network and how it's processed and basically the how to, what, when, where of Bitcoin. I printed that, got that engraved on the table, picked a really, really nice black marble stone to go on top, and I powder coated some square tubing legs. There is a Bitcoin conference in Miami, I think every year. I reached out to some people that were going there. I was going to try to get that sent there. Fell through, wasn't able to do it, so I found a way to put it on a site that basically every month they offer up handmade Bitcoin items. So I posted the table there. Somebody in Miami is on this site, and they were like, I want that table. I was like, okay, sure. Where are you? And he's like, I'm in Miami. And he sent me some pictures of his room, and he's got, crypto pictures and Ethereum this and all the tokens and Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, sure, man. Just pay me in Bitcoin. He's like, sent. And I arranged shipment of the table, saran wrapped it up, shipped it to him in Miami.
Oh,
That's a crazy story.
And he loves the table. Loves the table.
How'd you know how to price that?
I priced it at the time. I priced it off of 1 Bitcoin.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So let's go back to the starting story. How did the 300 series with the 700 series V8 turn out?
Oh, it was fun. It was really fun.
Did you have to modify the actual front end to get that thing to fit? Or
no, V8 was actually it fits. So the things that I had to modify were the oil pan to sit on the 3 series cross member, and then I had to make my headers. I had to modify the wiring harness for the 7 series to be accepted by the 3 series.
The mounts weren't the same, were they?
I had to buy custom mounts.
Yeah.
Custom mounts and motor mounts.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then bigger radiator, custom cooling fans, and I had to make the exhausts all the way for the back. And then those came with an option for a 5-speed, 6-speed, or an automatic. And I found a 5-speed in the boonies by me. There's a small shop near Lake of the Ozarks, and they specify in doing only BMW stuff. And so there is a BMW dealership near me in Kansas called Barron BMW, and Barron sends all their parts to this really little small shop near the Ozarks, and they rebuild the differentials and transmissions and all that stuff. Anyway, they had a 5-speed with a flywheel and all this clutch and blah, blah, blah. So I took that, put that on the back of the V8, took the VA out, took the heads off, head gaskets, water pumps, did the preventive maintenance stuff, put that all together, put that all in there, and drove it. And I think scooted. It was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Doesn't compare to the 3-wheel truck that you worked
Yeah,
on?
no.
What is that?
I don't know.
It's like something out
We'll
of
hear
a
about it.
Clouseau movie.
That is a what are they called? They're called
Yeah,
I forgot what they're called, but they're big in Europe, and they usually carry vegetables and stuff like that in the countryland. And this customer, he bought one, had it shipped over, got it through customs, and
in his luggage.
what people do is they outfit those and turn them into mobile bars, and they take them to venues, and they do prosecco, wine, beer, coffee, anything, and it's on wheels. And so take it to a venue, and they do that. And so I built the
clever.
box for that one, and that was definitely interesting, working with aluminum and bending it like that for those doors, like gull wing style doors, because it's just when you're working with aluminum and you're in those big sheets and you're trying to weld it, like it moves a lot.
Right.
It moves a lot.
A lot of spring back?
Yeah, it moves and spring back, and it bubbles from the heat. And so like as you're trying to TIG it, it's just bubbling, and then you're like, oh my God. And so that was definitely very tough to get done, but we got it done. Customer was happy with it, and I think it's still rolling around. Like if you look up, I think they actually changed the name. It's not KC Prosecco anymore. It's something else, but that thing is still rolling around, which is cool.
I only asked because when I looked up your business on Google, it was the first image that pops up.
Yeah, there you go.
I was like, is that his main mode of transportation around
No,
Kansas
definitely
City?
not.
Can't be that.
If there's anything we've learned from this interview, no, he's not driving.
right,
that.
exactly.
My head would stick out of that thing.
He's got access to 700 horsepower. I don't think
Right.
Yeah, no.
That's
There's one thing that I don't know if you can find it, but it's probably on my website. But the hardest job to date I've done on the front page probably is I had a customer that wanted me to build them spiral staircases, 2 tandem spiral staircases.
Oh, wow.
And that is why that warranted the trip to Chicago, is because Chicago Metal Parts or Rolled Parts is the only people that I know. Well, they're not the only ones, but they were giving me a deal on rolling C-channel. And so
you definitely did some CAD work with that project.
So that was above my pay grade. I had to hire an engineer, and he came in and basically did all the measurements, did everything, and did all the math and plugged it into his computer to where the pitch and the angle was this set amount. And then I could plug that into Chicago Rolled Parts calculator and give them their numbers and be like, hey, I need to roll this C channel with this angle, this pitch, and do that. But building those, that was the biggest job I've ever done, but also the most headache I've ever done.
Okay.
But client's super happy. I'm glad I did it, because that's like one thing a fabricator in their resume. If you want to do something hard, build spiral staircases.
Yeah.
Because that is so hard.
Yeah, we've had a few fabricators in here who have done things like that, and it takes a lot of time.
A lot of time.
Yeah.
I think that job took us probably 6 months.
Okay.
And so, and then because before we could do that, I don't know if you can see on the ceiling there. I don't know if you can click on those. Are you able to click on them?
I just kind of keep scrolling.
It just moves them. We had to basically support the ceiling because this is an old building, and so we had to support the ceiling with some really, really crazy I-beams that were 25 feet long, and they weighed 1,800 pounds.
You're talking about those right there.
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Yeah.
Those on the ceiling. We had to get those in, and then also the columns that support those are 4x4 square tube by 3/8. Those columns go to the basement through the main floor to support the beams. Oh my God, that was so heavy. But we got those up there, got those made onto the ceiling, and then we made our plates and joined the other I-beams to them. And then once we had the second floor supported, then we can start doing the handrail, or start doing the staircase.
Oh, no kidding.
And so we did the structural.
How did you end up getting those support beams up there?
So 5 guys,
Okay.
and we cut a hole in the floor, and we lobbed them down in there, and then went downstairs. 4 guys picked up the tube, and then I put the 12x12 3/4 inch plate under it, and then welded that, and then lagged that into the floor 12 inches deep.
Oh, wow.
And we did that for all 4 supports because there's 4 of those. And then we had to get really creative, which the creativity of figuring out a hard problem was. We had to get these I-beams from outside into this building that isn't wide, it's very narrow. And so the beams were like 22 feet long, and they weighed so much. The floor is old. It's an old wood floor, and so we can't get a bobcat in there.
Right.
Can't get a lift in there because it all caved through the floor. Scratching my head and trying to figure it out, I called my engineer buddies, I'm like, hey, I got to get this beam in here. I got to get it in here. And then I got to get 1,800 pounds 15 feet in the air without falling down and caving in the floor. And they're like, well, you can't get any equipment in there. You have to figure out how to shore up the floor and then get something to lift that in there. So went to a rental company, Sunbelt Rentals, and they have these lifts that are, what do they call them? They're not a man lift, but they're these little lifts, really mobile lifts.
Like scissor lift.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
But they're cable driven, not motor.
Oh, because they're meant to hold. Hold
and
up
so they're
support.
like this, and we slid the I-beams on, and we bought 3 of them, and the load capacity is 900 pounds each one, and so we stuck all 3 under it, used some jacks to like get it off the floor, and then stuck it under it, and then we just
by hand.
all by hand, and just all the way up, all the way up, all the way up, and then we put the beams under it, bolted it down.
Oh wow,
and then kept going.
man.
And then you can do the job.
Yeah, and then we got to the stairs, and I had to buy a roller to roll all those handrails, and we cut all the pickets and stuff like that. And the the client couldn't understand why the stairs had gaps in them, because she was trying to meet she's trying to open to capacity so she could make money and stuff like that. Also, this is a winery. But she couldn't understand why the stairs were just straight planks, and with spiral staircases in the middle of the bend, the stairs turn into like pizza slices because you have to accommodate for the curve.
Right.
And so
You deal with geometry.
yeah, and not my strong suit. But we did that and like kind of put up those temporary wood ones. And then she came back and was like, all right, I'll order custom stairs and stuff like that. And so, but she got open. She had her day. She's a little bit nicer now.
A little bit more appreciative.
Does she order rotisserie chicken for
Yeah. She's a little bit nicer now that she's open and she's like back to making money and stuff like that.
All right, Jay, tell everybody where they can find you.
So, if you want to find me, you can always look at my website, jfabwerks.com. If you are big in the social medias, you can always just jfabwerks on Instagram.
That's with an E.
Yeah, works with an E, not an O. Got to spice it up.
Because he likes his European automobiles.
At least you go with works with a Z.
I've seen that. I've definitely seen that. There are a lot of works in Kansas City that are either O or S or Z or E. But yeah, website, Instagram, Facebook, and you can always just call me and we can talk about welding at 1:00 in the morning. It's okay.
Call anybody in the Kansas City area and you can go, who's your welding guy?
There you go.
There you go.
Google me in Kansas City, and I'm usually first or second on the search list. So
cool. Well, thanks for joining us today. It's been fun. I've enjoyed some of the conversation, except for the parts that Gareth contributed to. So if you have any comments,
we'll leave those in though.
Feel free and send us your comments, complaints, suggestions to podcast at fmamfg.org. Be sure, rate, subscribe, recommend this podcast to your friends and family and strangers, if you would. So that's it. Thanks a lot. Bye.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited by Griffin Hammond and Dana Weicker. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Mike Owens, Billy Kolpa, Pat Simon, Brandon Geyer, and me, Sarah Spring. Email us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Thank you for listening.
It's got wings, baby. Yeah.